Hello and welcome to Raise the Bar, the podcast by Sky High and Fly Jump Camps, the founder of that particular Instagram handle. My name is Troy Haynes. I'm your host, and I am with Michael Millslagle. He is a sophomore at a college in Lamoni, Iowa, and he's going to tell us more about that as we go along. So, Michael, welcome to the show. How was practice today?
Practice was pretty good. We didn't do too much today. We did plyometric workout type thing. We jump alternate days. So today was a workout. Tomorrow we'll jump, and then the day after we'll do another workout.
All right. So that sounds all very good. How many days a week would you guys usually jump?
We do normally just about 2 days a week jumping.
Okay.
And 3 workouts.
Couple of days in between jumps?
Yeah, I'd say so, about 1 or 2.
Okay. So Michael, you told me that you both went to high school in Lamoni and now you're going to college there. Why don't you tell the rest of us, like from all the other parts of the U.S. and hopefully reaching around the world now, what is Iowa like? What's it like this time of year? What's the weather like? How's the training?
Oh, Iowa's great. Lamoni, very small town. My high school had maybe 100 people.
Uh-huh.
And Iowa's just always cold, so the weather is never nice until July, and then it gets warm after season. So there's never really a good time with the weather. It's about windy all the time. It's great.
So safe to say you guys do most of your training indoor?
We are very fortunate to have an indoor facility here at Graceland. Most of the schools around us, like in our conference, don't typically have an indoor facility. So we're very fortunate to have that.
Awesome. Yeah. Is it, I'm becoming a little bit more familiar with all these indoor, places. It won't be the first time on the show that we've talked about the fact that Southern California really doesn't have much in the way of indoor facilities or even really the need for one because of the weather. So there's really nothing going on out here. I don't know if anybody who is, forced to train indoors. So it's a little bit foreign to many of us on the West Coast. So for your particular indoor place, is this like a huge indoor arena or is it like a smaller indoor work area?
A lot of the places that we travel to for indoor season, it's kind of like an arena type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll have like practice turf for like football to practice indoor, and then the track will be around it, and then there'll be separate spots for like long jump, high jump, pole vault.
Right. So that'll be on the hard surface tartan and all that. Like anything else. Okay. A little bit different than outdoor though, still, as far as like those kinds of surfaces, or is it similar?
They're kind of very similar. Northwest Missouri State has a very nice indoor facility. It's kind of like jumping outdoor.
Uh-huh. Okay. What was my next question? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your progression in high school? Were you only a track athlete or did you do other sports?
No. So I played 4 sports throughout my 4 years of high school. I played football, basketball, track, and baseball.
Awesome.
And I was a decent athlete. I wouldn't say I was anything great when it comes to any of those sports. I was just kind of average, but made my way here now.
Right. So you and I were talking beforehand. You said, what was your best jump in high school was how high now?
Yeah, my best jump in high school was only 5'8". That was my junior year. So my senior year, COVID happened, so I didn't really get to see how I would have done, but.
Okay. And so no season there. Now, how did you get the opportunity to jump at Graceland there in Lamoni?
It's kind of a really interesting story because I came to Graceland originally to play baseball, and I kind of talked with the track coaches about maybe running track as well. And they were like, yeah, that would be great. But the 2 seasons conflict. So I really was here to play baseball at first. And so I trained with the baseball team all throughout fall, played fall ball. And as soon as second semester started, my high jump coach reached out to me. He was like, hey, we don't have any high jumpers, like male high jumpers at the moment. Would you like to just come try it out? And so I came, I started jumping. I jumped like 6'2". I was doing both for indoor season, both baseball and track.
Right.
And my first meet, I jumped like 6'2", and I was like, wow, that's
Right.
a lot better than high school. Maybe this will have something promising for me. And it kept going. The next meet, I think I jumped 6'5", and I was like thinking to myself, that's like crazy
Yeah.
improvement from where I was. And so ultimately, I had to come down to a decision between baseball and track, and because there was like 4 practices a day, and as a student athlete, that's really like stressful between
Sure.
class and practice.
Right.
So I came to this decision to stick with track, and it's working out for me pretty well.
Awesome. So, what was there? Were you not getting a lot of PT time on baseball? Was that part of it, or was it just like
Uh,
more
it was,
success?
yeah, I would say so. I mean, I was comparing the two options because I'm like I said, I wasn't like the greatest athlete in high school, so I knew where my skill level was when it came to baseball, and I was seeing a lot of improvement when it came to track.
Right.
And so I just figured that track would definitely be better for my future,
Right.
and so far that's come true.
Okay. Wow. That's so 5'8" up to 6'5". Now, was that it for that first year at the NAIA
No,
level? How did you get that first year?
for indoor, my first year, I cleared 2 meters, which is around 6'7".
6'3". Yeah. Yeah.
And then outdoor season, I was consistent around the 2 meter mark. And then about a year ago, last weekend or this weekend, I cleared 205 for the national qualifying mark for B standard. And
Right.
I actually made it to nationals with that. That was my highest that I jumped for that season.
Awesome. All right. Well, that was last year. Then now, what's your personal best up to now, Michael?
My personal best is now 214 or 7'1/4". And I'm hoping outdoor season I can get that up.
Right. Right. So, are you guys still haven't gone outdoors yet?
Yeah, we're actually 2 weeks away from conference, and then after that we'll have nationals. So we've been rolling pretty well with the outdoor season so far.
Okay, so you're in outdoors, even though it's cold where you are, and then so when you get outside, is it still? Are you? I find this. I'm kind of stumbling over my words, but this is my first year at Vanguard here on the West Coast, and they had indoor qualifying, but all the places that we jumped were outdoors. So we're jumping outdoor to qualify for an indoor meet, and then they did have the indoor NAIA finals, which I forget. I didn't have anybody that qualified to go there. So that was different. So now, is it possible that some of the schools like yourself would be jumping indoors to qualify for outdoor season?
Um, I don't think so around here, like not in our conference. We've been having all our meets outdoor, and like we traveled down to Kansas a couple weeks ago, and like the weather was phenomenal there. It was a lot warmer. I say phenomenal, but that's like 60, 70 degrees. To you
Right.
guys, that might be a little bit colder,
Right.
but it really depends on the days. Some days it's really warm. Some days it would be warm, but the wind is just going crazy, so it's making it a lot colder. So it's really not too bad right now.
Right. Okay. So we're getting the lay of the land now. You're 7'1/4". Where does that rank you outdoors for the NAIA championships, which are coming up in? I know this one, Southern Shores, Alabama. Is that right?
Gulf Shores, Alabama, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I jumped that indoor, so that had me ranked second in the nation for indoor.
Right.
But right now, my outdoor record is 208, and that has me tied for second with, I believe, 4 or 5 other people.
Okay. So stacking up pretty well. And
Yeah.
what do you think is it that's first of all, what's your goal for the end of the year, both at your conference meet and then farther along at the NAIAs, what would you like to get?
Well, this week we have the Drake relays, and I qualified for that. And there will be a bunch of D1 schools and people from all over at that meet. So I'm hoping I can really show out this week and jump pretty well. I've been struggling to get over the 211 mark, so I'm hoping at least this week I can maybe hit that, and then at conference go above that, or even if not at conference, at nationals be able to get the 7 foot 7.2 mark maybe.
Right. Okay. Are you familiar with, I had a podcast guest just last week, Shandon Reitzel?
Yeah.
Are you familiar? Have you guys jumped against each other?
Yeah, he's the NAIA. I think he's 3-time champ, 4-time champ.
Yeah.
I've jumped against him quite a few times. That kid's an animal. He always gets the job done.
Yeah.
Performs well under pressure, and
right.
He's really good.
Well, I got a 7.2 jump of his on my feed. I started following him, and one of the first things I saw, I think he sent it to me to post, and I was like, holy, he was like way over it. I was like 7.2. That was like a boomer. So I was thinking, he's going to jump really high. So, because he told me, the reason that popped into my head was you guys are both NAIA, and he said he's going there to the Drake relay. So if you hadn't met before, I was going to say, you got to look him up now that you guys are both Raise the Bar podcast guests. We're going to get a commemorative t-shirt or something. So you're going to Drake, and then when's your guys, I know our conference championship is this week, but then there's quite a gap in between our conference championship and the nationals. When's your guys' conference championship coming up?
So it's not this week, it's the week after. It'll be that Friday and Saturday of next week.
Okay. And so how many, I don't even know in our conference because I'm so new. I think I know some of the schools that are going to be there, competing against us because we see them all the time, anyway. But now we're coming up to the big dance. How many schools do you have in your conference that are going to be at your conference meet?
I think there's about 13 schools maybe, but there's not very many high jumpers that are like competing.
So you don't have to do a prelim or anything like that, right? It's just go for a final.
Yeah, it's just straight final.
Yeah, it's hard to get those kinds of numbers unless, when I was in high school in California, there were a ton of people. So we had, we went through our southern section of, which was not even just Sacramento, is still north. So we got down around, I think it's Santa Barbara or maybe Fresno is the cutoff in California, really long state. So everybody down south of that, there was both CIF, and then there was San Diego section, and there was city, like LA City, and then there was up north. And so we sent I think there was, let's say 18 kids from down south, and then 18 kids from up north, mixed us all together again at state prelims. So, then you'd have to have a prelim, because once you have that many people, it takes a while to, get through it all. So they just go, okay, let's start. And once we get to 12 and ties, we'll come back tomorrow, that kind of thing. So the good news about that is that you don't have to waste that energy. I was never any good at jumping one day and then getting just one day rest and coming back. Never. I don't even know. Maybe now with the knowledge that I got after by being a coach, and maybe it was just because I was in the dark ages, but I didn't learn about ice baths till I was out of UCLA. And I would have loved to have known about that stuff earlier, because I'm sure I would have just toughed it out and done it, and probably saved myself, a few painkillers at least. But and then also the recovery. I did not recover well at that state meet. I jumped whatever the metrics. I'm just gonna say 6'8". I jumped 6'8" in the prelim, and boom, I think I missed one jump, maybe one jump at 6'8". I was open at 6'4", 6'4", 6'6", 6'8". Boom, one miss into the final. And the next day I had nothing. I mean, I was just I could not get off the ground. I felt like a rock, but I wasn't heavy by any means, but I was 6'3", 180, which, when I got to UCLA, already the two jumpers that were, legendary jumpers in front of me were like, you're a tank. You got to lose weight. And I'm like, I played free safety in high school. I almost killed myself. I was 180 pounds, and my mom was worried I was going to break my neck, sticking it in there against some bigger people. And I'm like, and now I get told I'm huge, so I was like, okay, wait, this doesn't make any sense. But, as far as high jumping goes, carrying that extra weight off the ground, was a big deal. And, to prove that point, the next year I put on 15 pounds my freshman year. Like I did a freshman 15, like nobody's business. And I don't remember doing much. I don't remember eating more or less or whatever. And, we got on the track team and they started running us way harder than anything I did in high school. So I'm not really sure how I put on those 15 pounds. I did work out in the weight room a little bit, I want to say. I lifted heavier in high school for football than and we had a great weight room, but I didn't really attack it the way I should have. So I put on that weight, but I don't think I put on the strength to match. And I actually jumped less my freshman year, adjusting to that. So, and that was why I think I was always, I jumped, my best jumps were when I weighed 195. So once I adjusted to that, I had to get a lot stronger, but I was able to jump decent heights at 195. But I remember thinking, I wonder if I could have gotten that strong and stayed, lighter, because I think that second day was always just wasn't going to happen. I don't know. Yeah. So if there had ever been like Olympic trials for me, if I'd have gone Olympic trials and they'd have gone one day and come back the next, I don't know. I always wanted to get there, but I don't know how well I would have done. So let's talk about you again. I'm sorry, we wandered off into me talking about me. What are you studying there at Graceland University in Iowa?
I'm majoring in business management and minoring in economics.
Okay. All right. So when you make your big money jumping, you're going to know what to do with it and how to start up a business and all that. Awesome. And you say you got 2 more years left, and you sounded interested in this, big meet at Drake Relays. You said there's gonna be a lot of D1 schools there. Are you thinking about, and might be a tough question, but are you thinking about maybe hitching a ride to another school? Or are you going to tough it out there?
I mean, right now, really, that's not too much on my radar. I mean, I've created a really strong bond here with a bunch of people on my team, my coach. Without him, I definitely wouldn't be where I'm at. So I feel like here's going to be where I'm at for a while.
Okay, fair enough. And when you're training now, this is of more interest to me, because the reason that I started up Sky High and Fly, jump camps, and got it onto Instagram in particular, my camps are just for training, high school kids, and it started to grow and get some bigger athletes coming. But, as far as me being on Instagram, I really wanted to know what's going on. Like, what are people doing when they train? I always want to be that fly on the wall where, when you find someone who's jumping really, really high, obviously, like, what are they doing? What are they doing that I could have done? Or what are they doing that I can do now, with my athletes? Is there anything that they're doing that I'm not, that I can get out of it? So you mentioned the fact that you do plyos, and, for some people listening on the show, they might not even know, what plyometrics are. They might hear that word and I don't know, do we ever do plyos? Because there's all kinds of different levels, right? There's people that have just started high jumping and their coach doesn't know anything about it, and they don't have any coaches. They got the high jump mats out, and somebody runs up and jumps over, and they're like, wow, you're pretty good, and they're like, so who do I go to? It's like, well, we don't have anybody. Everybody's underqualified, right?
Yeah.
So they probably don't know what plyometrics are. They don't know what resistance training is. They don't, they're just running out and jumping over stuff. So help us out there. You said you're doing plyos a couple times a week, and I'm going to stick you with the tough question. What exactly are plyometrics?
That's a question I don't have the answer to, because plyometrics are really kind of new to me, because in high school we didn't do any of that. I was kind of just told, hey, you're decent at high jump. Let's see what you can do. Go
right.
Do it yourself. And really, the plyos that we do are simple box jumps with 2 feet, 1 foot box jumps,
Mhm.
5 times on each foot. And then we do squat jumps. And then we get onto the mat, kind of do tuck jumps, and then also squat jumps on there just for resistance strength.
Right. Okay. You guys ever do any depth jumps where you start at off a, say, a high box and then drop down and just catch?
Yeah, we do that. We do that every other week or so.
Mm-hmm. Do you find those going higher and higher as the season goes on, or is your coach keeping those pretty consistent?
We keep it pretty consistent. We haven't really moved it up too much. Is that something that we should probably be doing?
You know, that's what I really would like to do with this someday, is almost just have a huge thing or just like have the Zoom call and let people call in and like get people on and go, what are you guys doing? You know, and open it up. We do that. You know, I do both the drop and catch, and then the drop, catch, and explode back up. You can drop, catch, and go under another box, or you can drop, catch, and just jump straight up again, right? And you can do everything off 2 legs. You know, it's obviously harder off 1. So I usually go in the training, everything basically that is doable with 2 legs eventually will graduate to 1 leg. And in strength training, that includes squats, you know, hang cleans, deadlifts. You know, I like to do 1-legged versions of all those. You start with the 2, get strong, and then move over to the 1, you know. And that would even, you know, so 2 legs to 1, and then also from deep to shallow, right? When you first start in your early training, full squats, full range of motion all the way down. Even though in the high jump, you know, you're never going to get that much of a bend in your leg, right? So any kind of a 90-degree angle at your knee is overtraining in a lot of ways. But it's nice to have that power to call on, right? So you lay down that base, and then as the season goes on, all of a sudden we're going to half squats, quarter squats, and then maybe like quarter jump squats at the end, right? That are way more explosive, way quicker, you know, that whole thing. So I like to progress that way, but at the same time, that's all 2 legs. So if you can do that same progression, maybe again, or change it from 2 legs to 1 leg on a different workout or whatever, eventually that single leg work, I think, is more sport specific, obviously, because we don't take off of 2 legs, we take off of 1. And putting that 1 leg under stress is a great thing. The other concern with that is also to decrease your volume, because, you know, off 2 legs, you don't take as much pounding as you would off 1. So you can't handle as much weight, I don't believe, or, you know, the same number of reps, you know, the same volume. So I think of those that way. The same thing with those boxes that you're talking about. I mean, there's certain box drills are simpler, easier, and quote unquote safer, you know, to do a lot of reps with, right? But then, you know, we all know that there's the shock value to the muscles and everything, and we're really trying to stimulate the neuromuscular system and drop down and load those muscles with a great, you know, that eccentric loading, where we catch and store energy, and then we let it go as quickly as possible, right? That's always telling my athletes, get off the ground. You don't want to spend any time on the ground. Have your arms ready already. You know, when they jump down and their arms aren't ready, and then they got to swing them back up, I'm like, no. Okay, that rep doesn't count. Get back up on the box. As you're falling, load your arms so that you can get off the ground, you know? And so whatever we're doing on plyometrics, I'm always trying to stress the speed, but that's again towards the end. You know, you can do the slower, almost softer, smoother plyos and start building that, you know, tensile strength in your ankles and knees and everything, and, you know, not go so high and not go, you know, necessarily tons of them, right? But just load up the system a little bit and let them get stronger. So I think that's a weakness of mine in particular. I'm just thinking about it now. I think I'm almost always ready to jump into plyometrics, you know, a little bit heavier right away. Even though I have the volume in mind, I think I need to do lower end stuff. So big dissertation on plyos. What about, have you guys done any work? I'm starting to see more and more of this on Instagram. Have you guys done any work with lateral plyos?
I wouldn't say we do too much work with lateral plyos, but we do like a lot of speed work when it comes like with mini hurdles and ladders, and we try to help increase our speed so we're able to speed up more on the runway.
Right. So real like speed agility stuff, right? Like the soccer kind of drills, like fast feet, football, in and out, in and out, in and out, right? Yeah, I like that stuff too. Especially as you're ramping up towards the end of the season and everything's like, I mean, the high jump approach, unless you're Brandon Stark or Brandon Stark's approach like 16 steps long, but most everybody else seems to be doing either shuffle into 7 or 8, or even standing no more than 10, and just get on your horse as fast as you can. But you need to have that fast, snappy reaction, right? Either that or you're just going to be slow and really, really strong and try to convert up and hold it as long as you can. So you do a lot of speed agility, you do plyos. What about the weights? I kind of jumped in and out of that a little bit. When you guys are lifting, what are your bread and butter power lifts?
So during the season, we don't really go too hard. We haven't done too much, but preseason, we did a lot of Olympic style lifts. So like deadlift, cleans, squats, just to kind of build leg strength.
Right.
And we would do step ups as well, weighted step ups. And during like those plyometric workouts, I like to wear a weighted vest to kind of help build strength there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's see. What about, I call these auxiliaries, other than the pure power Olympic lifts, anything special you guys do for your hip flexors or your glutes, like, hip flexors for knee drive, glutes for, punching your hips when you're on top of the bar? Anything unique in there?
Not really. I mean, kind of the only thing we do for our hips is just kind of hip mobility. We like to keep them loose, keep them mobile, so we're able to, get that arch
right
flexible. But I wouldn't say anything strength training related when it comes to those.
Okay. How about another group I like to hit are your calves and the tibialis anterior. Like one of my favorites. This guy really should give me some ad revenue money. The guy that I'm always plugging is the knees over toes guy. That he's always showing something to do with bulletproofing your ankles or your shins or your knees or whatever. And a lot of tibialis raises where you're pulling your feet back up this way, so you're dorsiflexing really hard and strengthening that tibialis muscle, which again, if I'd have known about that in high school, I would have just killed those. Because once I found them in college, my shin splints were gone. I mean, they were very troublesome all the way through high school and a little bit my first year in college. And some of it may have been just that maturity when you're growing into your man body and all that. But I think still those exercises that I started then with just a weight hanging off of a belt, I'd hang it off my foot, and in my dorm room, I'd be sitting on my loft and I'd be able to hang it straight down, and I would just crank those up until they burned, and I do those every other day and never had a shin splint again. So, that combination, both, the front and the back side, tibialis in the front, and then your calves and your soleus muscles, get them really strong. You get up on your toes and finish that, takeoff. I like to try to work those as well. The hard part is, in the midst of all this training, is to figure out where to fit in an extra, couple sets. You want to live in the weight room, even as a high jumper. So your goal is 7.2 sometime soon. I was happy to get you on here, and the recent run of jumpers has been Olympic trials competitors, guys that have gone to the Olympic trials. And then we just had, I don't know if you followed him on Instagram, Marcus from, I'm forgetting his name, Marcus Gelpi from Northern California. He jumped 7.1 at the JC level. And then Shannon, 7.2 and a quarter. And I'm like, I saw yours at 7 feet and a quarter. And I'm like, well, these guys are the new wave, part of that new wave of possible U.S. Olympic trial high jumpers. You know, you got 3 years here, right, from till 2024. Any thoughts about, you know, getting, what is it, I think it's only 220 to get the B standard, right?
Yeah, I think so. You know, before the indoor season, that really wasn't like a possibility for me. But after jumping 7 foot, that really like woke me up and making me want to like work a lot harder so I could eventually do that, because that would be an absolute dream come true. You know, even just competing at the trials would
Yeah.
be amazing.
Yeah, I didn't really have any dreams of winning or anything like that. I mean, we used to talk about it. You know, when I was up at UCLA, my roommate was a triple jumper named Dwayne Washington. Dwayne, if you're out there listening, I haven't talked to you in about 10 or 15 years. And we would sit up some of those times. He and I both ran in different circles. So, you know, he was, I don't even remember what Dwayne's major was. I don't think we ever even talked about school. We didn't have any of the same classes, but we were on the track team together, and we would talk about, you know, our dreams and what we wanted to do. And I remember saying, yeah, I just want to get to the Olympics. I want to get to the Olympic trials first, but, you know, and then after that, you know, the bigger dreams would come out. You know, it's like, if I could make the team and, you know, get on a Wheaties box. I mean, this is just a few years removed. I was in school in 1982. So in 1976, Bruce Jenner had just been on the cover of a Wheaties box, you know, after winning the decathlon. And so that was like, you know, I think the newest member of that particular thing, I don't think that was even Michael Jordan's time yet. 84 was 84 the dream team? He was just about ready to break into the pros, but I think he might have still been in college then. So, you know, then there's another guy getting on the box. It was always like, who's going to be on the Wheaties box? Who won the gold medal? You know, and we'd always talk about that. But man, I would have just been happy to make it to the trials. You know, I tried 84 when I was a sophomore. I just jumped 220 for the first time. Or I'm sorry, I jumped 7.2, which is what, 218 maybe. And you know, the trial height was 7.4.5. So I had to jump, you know, 225, and I didn't even have that on my wish list. I think it was a lot like you. You know, you just PR'd this year and stepped into the 7-foot club, and that kind of opens your eyes a little bit, and you're like, oh, there's something up here. You know, I was like, my freshman year was horrible, and then getting over 7 feet and then 7.2. The only thing that I had driving me to get that was to get some scholarship money. You know, I had been told that I was just walking on. And I remember asking the coach the first day, I said, well, what's it going to take, you know, for me to get some scholarship money? And he kind of chuckled, you know, like, yeah, you jumped 6'10" in high school. And last year, you know, actually it was before I'd had such a horrible freshman year, but he was still chuckling. And he said, yeah, well, you know, you jumped 7'2", you know, you can come see me. And so when I jumped 7'2", I went into his office the following Monday. I was waiting for him. And he goes, yeah, you want some money? And I was like, yeah, that'd be nice. And so, you know, we did that, but that was my main impetus for that. I didn't have trials on my mind or anything else. And this was 84. Now the Olympics were in LA, and there were people, they had finally made us a real nice track. And there were people coming to train with us, you know, from all around the world using the track facility. And so it was a big deal. You know, John Brenner was a great thrower at UCLA, one of the all-time greats, and was #1 in the world in the shot like that whole year. And there was just tons of energy going in and out of the place. So you'd think I'd be a little bit more aware of it, but it was like 7.2 was a pretty good jump from 6'8" the previous year, you know? So I was pretty, I don't know, I want to say satisfied, but I just didn't have the trials on my radar. So a couple people, once the season ended, Pac-12s or Pac-10s at that time ended, it was like, hey, you know, you're only like 2 inches away from the trial height. I was like, what? Okay, well, so I went to a couple more meets and I didn't have it, you know, at that point. So that was 84. I tried it again in 88 and again in 92 when I was 28 years old. And that was it, you know, hung them up and took my shot at it. And at that time, the trial height was ridiculously high. They kept bumping it up. It was like 7.5 1/4, I think in 92. So, and I don't remember the A standard, B standard thing. There may have been those, but I wasn't aware of them. I was just like, I gotta jump 7.5 1/4. So anyway, you have that on your radar now, which is cool. You got a couple of years to do it. So have you officially put that in as a goal, or is that still like after 7-2 and some other changes happen?
I mean, in my mind, that's a goal, but verbally, I'd say 7-2 is the goal first to people asking around,
Uh,
if I say Olympic trials is my next goal, people will look at me like I'm crazy because,
right, right,
improving 4 or 5 inches is a big deal when it comes to high jump because
absolutely,
it's not
yeah,
just something that happens every week.
right. That's a huge thing. Well, you had that happen to you a couple times, right? From 5'8" up to, I mean, that next year when you went from 5'8" to what, 6'7", you said, or 6'6" the end of that year, or
Yeah, it was a couple years apart. It went from 5'8" to 6'9". So
yeah, I mean, that's huge. You remind me of another jumper out here that I was training, Kyle Jenkins. Kyle, if you're out there listening, give me a call one of these days. He's at San Jose State.
oh yeah.
He jumped 6'10", the very first dual meet that we had that year of COVID. So he jumped 6'10", and then they shut it down. Didn't jump again in high school, which was just a travesty because I thought he was going to jump 7'2". He's just perfect body type, 6'5", 4", something like that, like 160 pounds. He's just tall and lean and fast and just like, and so he went from, I think, 5'8" or 5'10" as a sophomore to 6'8" as a junior. He had one of those leaps when I remember seeing him too as a sophomore and thinking he should be jumping higher, but I don't know why he wasn't. But man, his junior year, he threw a jump at CIF Masters meet at 6'10". That was, I was like, oh man, this kid's got a ton of talent. So yeah, he's another one. I keep thinking he's ready to to bust out anytime. But yeah, the getting ready for that's the next step, right? So with your coaches now, they've got you lifting. Do you have once the season's over and you go, do you take a couple weeks off before you start training again? What's going to happen this summer?
You know, Last summer it was kind of like that. I had maybe a week and a half off, and then we were just training again. So since I'm here or I live here in town, I'm gonna assume that'll be kind of the same type of deal. We'll have a couple weeks off, and then we'll just get right back to it.
Yeah. Okay. You guys ever do any dunking in your workouts? You go in the gym and grab some rims, or
Uh, you know, as a team, we don't really do that, like with my coach and I. But I played basketball before, so I kind of enjoy it. So every now and again, like the town has a old man league where
right?
people 18 and up just go and play basketball. So I'll go there sometimes and I'll dunk a little bit, try to get up, show off my hops to all the
Right.
old guys.
Now, do they prohibit that? Because when I was at UCLA, they had strict prohibitive rules against us doing anything that could possibly injure us, during the season. And I must admit that we weren't very good at obeying those rules. There were plenty of times that guys would go and play intramural basketball, and of course you're always at risk, rolling your ankle or doing something like that. And that did happen to me, and it was never admitted. I was never convicted, but I do remember hopping on one foot into the training room and shoving it into an ice bucket, into an ice bath whirlpool for a while, and getting really well taped. And then they told me, what exercises to do to recover. So um, we would do that for sure. What else are we going to talk about? So when it comes to your summer, then you get a week and a half off, and then for the training during the off season, do you think you can, are you just going to get even stronger than you were last year? Do you think that's possible?
I'm really hoping. Uh, I haven't really been hitting the weight room too hard, during the season. Before the season, I was, so I'm hoping to kind of get back into that, build up my strength to exceed where I was, so we can, get stronger, jump higher.
Right. So what is your max full squat at right now?
Ooh.
Your best?
To 185. I don't know. I'm
85
not really sure.
squats. That's a deep full squat. So what are your dimensions? We never talked about how tall you are and how heavy. What are you at?
I'm about 5'11" and a half, and I'd say 150 pounds soaking wet.
So you don't have the height, but you got the light. You are light. And would you characterize yourself as a power jumper or a speed guy?
I'd say more speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, fast and light, right? So, and single arm or double arm? It's been a while since I watched your video. You take off with one arm leading, or you double?
Just one. I
Just
use
one. Okay. So, did that happen through any planning, or did you just that was just kind of the way it happened? Did you just?
That's just how I've always jumped. I mean, we haven't really changed much technique wise since, I mean, with my form going over the bar and such, like
Right.
jumping up, just haven't changed the way I jump off.
Yeah, I'm always curious because when I was, again, you guys have it so good now. I'm always amazed, but there's just so much video stuff. Like if I want to see somebody jump, I can pretty much find it. I can find Diamond League stuff. I can find world championships to a certain spot. As you go farther and farther back, it starts to get a little spotty. You get around my time and there's nothing. There's just nothing on there, and what was on was poorly done. So you don't get to see a lot of jumps. Like I still remember the 84 high jump coverage. And it was like, I saw one make by Doug Nordquist, one of our previous guests. I saw one jump by Dwight Stones. They never showed Milton Good try anything, the third American. And then a couple of jumps from the guys that ended up winning. Mogenberg from West Germany won at 7'8 3/4, and then Joberg, I think, jumped the same height, but he beat him on misses. And it was just such spotty, horrible coverage. The camera angles were bad. It was just like, I almost can't learn anything watching this. I did see what style they used at takeoff and stuff like that, but it was, so there weren't really a lot of Americans at that time doing the single arm, for sure. And I remember thinking, oh, this is just the European stuff, and Mogenberg was 6'8" and like, I don't know, he couldn't have weighed more than 160 pounds dripping wet. He was stick and he was really fast. And I was always like, well, he's just blowing through the bar, I don't understand how he's getting up there. And then I actually saw a picture on Instagram where his knee drive is, boy, up and across back into the curve like crazy. It was a still shot, but I was like, oh, okay. I've never seen any angle of what he was actually doing at the takeoff that I could slow it down and see it, So I was like, oh my gosh, that knee drive was killer. That was the saving grace for me. And then it took me a long time to realize that the advantage of the single arm was simply that whoever was using it was taller at takeoff. As your heel is hitting the ground, you've got your hand even a little bit above your head, you're already taller, right? So I think that makes a lot of sense for someone who's 5'10" and 150 pounds and who's fast, that as that arm starts creeping up, all of a sudden your center of mass is raised higher just because your hand's up above your head. I'm gonna have to drive mine there, both of them, as I'm swinging through. You're already there at heel strike, right? So it's like, hey, and I've actually started, I wouldn't say I'm like an expert, but I've started trying to switch some of my athletes to it, especially the ones that don't really take to the double when they try it. I'm like, hey, I watch how they come off the ground a couple times, like, try this, let this arm go, and just watch and see, because there's a couple of them that it just seems to make everything a lot easier, Like, do you find it's easier for you to maintain your speed through your approach simply because I'm gathering, I shouldn't use that word. I'm surmising that you don't gather, right? So do you just typical run off the ground, right?
Yeah. We kind of, you just kind of you just trust your steps, basically, is what we've
Right.
been taught. And, we don't really gather too much. We just,
Yeah, well, you're too busy running, right? I mean, you
yeah.
can't gather when you're running. So if that arm, now I should take that back. I just watched, Derek Drown was one. I remember the first time I saw him, and I've been the worst, for someone who is, fancy himself, a good high jump coach. I really did not pay attention to the world scene for quite a while. I just I checked out. I was coaching at a high school, and I just, I wasn't on that higher level of really paying attention. And 2016, I just started watching some of Barshim and Bondarenko and that kind of stuff. And they had that outrageous meet where they both jumped 7:11 and a half, right? Nobody had ever done it. A bunch of people had done it, but never two people in the same meet, right? And they both took good jumps at like 8 something. So it was like, wow, these guys are really, really good. So in 2016, I'm waiting to see either one of those guys win the gold medal. And Derek Drown out of Canada comes out and just spanks them both, and was just outrageously good. And he's running in, and then I see the power gather, and then all of a sudden he pulls his arms back and goes to a single. And I'm like, what is he even bothering to gather for?
Yeah.
I'm like, I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, no, I was taught, get your hands together so you can swing both arms back and drive them up, So this is the one lesson I've been learning for the last, I keep learning it. Actually, I guess I haven't learned it yet if I have to keep relearning it. But every time I say that nobody's ever done it before, here comes somebody that does it. And this happened to me 2 weeks ago now at Mount Sac. You guys heard about Mount Sac relays where you are? Is that a big meet?
I haven't heard about it.
Not as big as the Drake relays, right? Because where's Drake again? Is that in Des Moines, Iowa?
Yeah, that's in Des Moines.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's in your backyard almost, right? So out on the West Coast, it used to be the Mount Sac relays was one of the biggest meets. Now in the high school schedule, it was Arcadia. That was the big invitational. And they actually pulled some kids from other states, blah, blah, blah. And then Mount Sac was a big relay, but they was really more targeted towards junior colleges and college and elite athletes. And they still had the high school kids come out. It was almost like, yeah, we'll have a couple of high school kids, but it was kind of more focused on the other end. So they just opened that stadium up this last year after a couple years of, it being out of the picture, and they were renovating. And I think Nike must have dumped like, I don't know what the number is, but 25 or 30 million, because it is spectacularly nice. I got the grand tour from a good friend of mine who unfortunately just passed away, Ron Kamaka, who was the head track coach and cross country coach there, but he was a high jumper, and 222, I think 7.3.5. But he had just showed me that facility, and it was just, oh my gosh, so nice. So what was my point talking about Mount Sac? 2 weeks ago, what I saw that was different. We're lucky because sometimes I get lost in these. So 2 weeks, I'll be like, what the heck was I talking about? And it'll go away. It's like, talk about me. And if I don't remember, I learned that from a comedian named Billy Connolly. But anyway, 2 weeks ago, I watched a kid, and I remember telling somebody, I don't think that I've ever seen someone who drags their foot at takeoff jump any higher than maybe 2.72, 1 or 2. I was like, I don't think you can generate enough force or speed, right? So almost as soon as the words are out of my mouth, yet again, I'm watching the guys jump on Saturday, and there's a guy that used to jump at Texas Tech, and I don't know his name, but he jumped 226 or 227, 7.5 something, and he dragged his foot big time, and it was like, it didn't seem to matter to him. He was getting that knee drive up there and popping his hips and jumped 7.5 1/4. So I was like, yet again, just someone to show me that as soon as I say, I don't think that can be done, and both of the guys that won the NC2As last year, Javon Harrison with his unique, knee drive, bring the other knee up and then punch both hips. I did jump against a guy like that in high school, but it had been a long time. I was almost like, I've never seen that before. My brain goes, yes, you have, but it's been like 40 years. And then the other guy, is he from Texas or Texas Tech? I can't remember. He just jumped 7.7 1/4 indoors, and he drives one knee up, and he drives the other knee up, and it looks like he's hitch kicking.
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, I have never seen that before. But then my good friend Doug Nordquist told me that he actually jumped against somebody like that once. And I'm like, wow, and here I thought I knew everything. But so there's always somebody that puts their own stylistic touch on it, right? So that's always a cool thing. And that's why I love telling my high jumpers, I go, hey, I can train you to be me as best I can, but I'm crappy at doing that because you're not supposed to be me. You're supposed to be a good high jumper. So we got to figure out what it is that you've got. Are you tall? Are you fast? Are you strong? You have great knee drive? What is it? How are you using your arms? And I've become kind of a chameleon. I can demonstrate 3, 4, 5 different types of gathers and sequences, and then say, we've got different styles. You got different styles of layout. You can throw your head straight back. You can throw your head straight back with your eyes closed. You can, look over your shoulder. It's like you go through them, and every time I see something that I really admire, I'll just be like, okay, why is this so attractive? Why is it good? Is there something biomechanically that's good, or is it just good for that person? And one of my favorites watching right now is this little gal from Argentina. Her name is Betsabe Paez. If you get a chance, look her up on Instagram. But she has a beautiful single arm. She's only like 5'6". She's a little pixie, and she's jumped 5'10" or 5'11", and she gets a single arm going. But at the top of her layout, she actually reaches around and connects her arm to her foot, kind of like Bondarenko and Drown, but way bendier. Like Bondarenko and Drown are just kind of like just reaching a little bit to shorten up and spin really quick because their rotation's so great. She like milks that thing. She's in this unbelievable position. And it's like, oh my gosh. I go, that is so nice. I'm like, I don't know if I can teach anybody how to, I mean, I like it. I'm visually and everything. It's aesthetically pleasing and it's definitely efficient. But I'm like, I don't know if I could teach anybody how to do it exactly like that, but that would be a nice goal. Well, hey, Michael, it's been a pleasure. What did I not ask you? We talked about your major. We talked about your training. We talked about your goals. If you're get a chance, I always like to ask this question, but there are, hopefully some older guys out there, and they're like, I remember in my day, we used to do plyos 3 times a week or whatever. And, so they're listening. And then you've got your contemporaries, guys like Shannon, guys like Marcus, some of these young guns that I'm hoping that you guys are all going to be U.S. Olympic trials participants here in another 3 years. And then there's some high school kids hopefully listening out there. What would you tell those young high school kids, about how to be successful at the next level?
I would say take every opportunity that you can get to get better. Find the people willing to work for you and with you to help you achieve what you want to achieve. Not having, I'd say, not having the opportunity that you want shouldn't hold you back. Keep working hard, just train to do better. That's about it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that too, because you guys, you and Marcus and Shannon, some of the last few guests that I've talked to, have all gone through the COVID thing. So there were some real difficulties in trying to pursue any kind of training there for a while, right? It's like everybody was, stuck at home and all the tracks were closed and the weight rooms are closed. And it was like, okay, how do I get stronger? How do I get faster? It's like, go find a strip of grass somewhere. And, everybody did that. I did that, training athletes. It was like, we had to find anywhere to go, creative, right? So persevering, getting to that next level. I like that advice. Finding someone to train with, that's a big one. I feel for the people that, one of the reasons that I'm doing what I'm doing is that, trying to get people the opportunity to grow, and to find a coach, because like we were talking about, it all depends, where you were. I was really fortunate growing up at Millikan High School in Long Beach. We had 5 years in a row. I counted as 5. A buddy of mine, Dave Wicker, was a year in front of me, and I did nothing but chase this guy through high school, right? So he was a year in front of me. And when we were in junior high, in 9th grade, he jumped 6 feet, which was the school record. And I had jumped like 5, 6.5 in the 8th grade, which was the new school record, since broken. Then he left to go to high school, and I turned into the 9th grader, and I jumped 5'11". Like I almost caught him. So then he goes off to high school and he jumps. I don't remember what he jumped as a sophomore, because I was at the other school. But when I got there, it was my freshman or sophomore year, I jumped 6'2" or something. He jumped 6'8", and then at league finals he jumped 6'10", and one of the standards slid down and the bar stayed on, and they didn't allow the jump. And I was like, oh, you got to be kidding, right? So we all knew he jumped 6'10". It was a good jump, and so that was one year. The very next year, he jumped 6'10" like 3 or 4 different times. Couldn't get over 7 feet, but he was consistent at 6'10". Basketball player like yourself, shooting guard on the basketball team, you know. And then he goes off to Long Beach City College, and I come up to my senior year. I jumped 2'10", 6'10" 3/4. The year after that, another basketball player named John Bareford jumped 6'10". And the year after that, a kid named Derek Moore jumped 6'10". We had 5 years in a row at Millikan High School of kids jumping 6'10" or better. And I'm willing to bet if it's not a record, it should be, you know, as far as
That's insane.
years, right? And so I'm thinking back, I'm like, who was our coach? Oh yeah, Coach Halstead. Halstead was a defensive line guy, huge, like huge chest, big, we called him Halstead. He was just this huge guy, and he was very cool. But all I remember was get in the weight room, and then he'd have us bound up and down the bleachers on one leg, you know, doing single arm, you know, double arm pump, drive the knee, and bounce up, right? And I remember that. I remember, you know, us doing back overs and some full approaches and this and that. And I'm like, man, he kept it simple, and that must have been the perfect combination, because, you know, 5 years in a row, crazy stuff. So, you know, sometimes you're just blessed. You get into the right situation. You got yourself a coach. You got somebody that at least has a plan. At least they got an idea of how to make you more successful, right? And then as you go along, you're going to keep, I think, you know, pushing that envelope. You know, there's sometimes I think maybe somebody's just good enough to get you to a certain level, and then you're like, you know, maybe I got to start seeking out, you know, something else. And that's a hard part, but, you know. Well, hey, Michael, it's been a pleasure. I haven't eaten dinner yet, so
a great time.
Back from working, I'm going to go eat. And I know you're a couple hours ahead of us here, so it's getting later for you. I don't want to get any letters saying you're keeping those kids up too late. They should be getting to sleep because they're studying hard and they're working out hard. So God bless you, my young man. I wish you nothing but the best. I'd love to hear from you. Make sure you send me, you know, your results. If you get any videos of you jumping at Drake relays, I want to try to get that same notice out. I can't remember if Marcus is going to go, but I know Shannon's going to go. And I'm like, you guys send me videos, man. I'll post them up, and I'll always promote you.
For sure, will do.
All right, sir.
Thank you so much.
Hey, I had a good time. It's good talking with you, and hopefully we'll get a chance to meet in person here at Alabama in about a month, right? Something like that.
Great.
Something a week.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Thanks for your time, Michael. We'll talk soon. All right. Bye-bye.